For weeks, tabloids buzzed with speculation about what occurred that fateful night. Network news and entertainment channels could talk of nothing else. At last, a video was released that exposed the truth, and we finally learned whether it was a 9-iron or a 7-iron that Aylin used to bash Tiger's SUV. The problem is, this video is a segment of Motion News, a computer-animated reconstruction created by the Taiwan Apple Daily. And rather than being based on fact, it is based on news blurbs and pure speculation. The New York Times of December 6, 2009 says that the events featured on Motion News have not been witnessed or verified by any journalist. In some cases, the events never actually occurred, yet Motion News is passed off as a legitimate representation of news events. This is not a matter of high school kids making prank videos. The Global Post of December 1st, 2009 says that the Apple Daily releases 20 to 30 of these videos every day and keeps over 300 animators on staff. To put that in perspective, Pixar employed just under 40 animators in order to create the award-winning movie Up. And with the success of clips like the Tiger Woods reconstruction, which has over 2.4 million hits on YouTube, the Apple Daily is preparing to bring Motion News to America. This controversial practice has the potential to change journalism forever, and it raises the question: how does Motion News undermine the legitimacy of journalism? In order to answer this question, we will look to the article Simulating Natural History: Walking with Dinosaurs as Hyperreal Edutainment by Andrew Darley. This article is ideal for our analysis because it explains how the use of computer-generated imagery, or CGI, can undermine the credibility of information dissemination. So today, we will first discuss Andrew Darley's method, then we will apply it to Motion News, and finally, we will take a look at the implications of the Apple Daily's atypical journalism. According to Mark Wolf's book, Collecting Visible Evidence, a subjunctive documentary uses CGI in cases when there is no video evidence. For example, a documentary about dinosaurs uses CGI because it's impossible to show footage of an actual dinosaur. When this CGI is speculative in nature, but is presented as truth, Darley argues that it undermines the legitimacy of the science itself. Darley gives 3 criteria that qualify a documentary as subjunctive: simulation, pastiche, and edutainment. First, simulation refers to a hyperreal representation of events wherein images begin to stand in for the real thing. It has been called a copy without an original. For example, the documentary Egypt, Engineering an Empire contains CGI simulations of ancient Egyptian buildings that are, potentially, more perfect than the originals. Yet the CGI simulations are the images that the mind recalls. Second, pastiche is parody without laughter. Whereas simulation deals with content, pastiche deals with style. The 1996 film Watermelon Woman is, ostensibly, a documentary about a black lesbian actress from the 1930s, complete with voiceovers and historical footage. However, this actress never actually existed. This piece is not a mockumentary, it is pastiche, an unsmiling imitation of legitimate documentary. Finally, edutainment consists of dramatic spectacle that is more concerned with entertainment than with truth. Director Michael Moore sometimes stretches the truth in order to make an engaging film. In an interview about his documentary, Sicko, Moore asserted, "What you call oversimplification, I call a rockin' good way to tell a story." This preference for style and story over substance qualify this documentary as edutainment. Now that we understand Darley's method, we are ready to apply it to our artifact. First, Motion News clearly involves simulation. The animators fill in the gaps of news reports to create a hyperreal representation of events that may never have actually occurred. One video, uploaded February 27th, 2010, shows current photographs of 1970s serial killer Rodney Alcala, combined with simulated footage of one of the slaves. Now, this event occurred almost 40 years ago, so the animators have no way of verifying the accuracy of their depiction, and yet they have simulated a sequence of events for viewers to store in their memories. Second, motion news demonstrates pastiche because it imitates authentic news reports. According to the Taipei Times of November 23, 2009, these reports mix animation with background music, voiceovers, and real-life footage of news events. As in the Alcala video, when animation is mixed with authentic film, it creates a seamless narrative that gives the impression of being entirely real. To the uninformed observer, motion news is easily seen as a legitimate representation of reality. Finally, motion news is edutainment. It is gimmicky, dramatic, and sensational. One video, uploaded December 1st, 2009, graphically depicts a sex abuse scandal involving a swim coach and young boys. Another, uploaded December 10th, 2009, shows an elderly woman being strangled in her own bed by an intruder. These videos show a clear preference for entertainment over accuracy and responsibility. Now that we have applied this method, we are ready to return to our research question. How does motion news undermine the legitimacy of journalism? Through simulation, pastiche, and edutainment, motion news demonstrates what might have been, not what actually happened, in a way that undermines the legitimacy of all journalism. Subjunctive journalism, like motion news, will have three implications. One methodological, two societal. First, Darley's model applies to journalism as well as scientific documentaries. However, there is a difference between presenting theory based on physical science and presenting stories based on human perspective. Scientific documentaries present the results of experimentation that can usually be replicated. Unfilmed news events cannot be replicated, meaning that Darley's method needs to consider the fallibility of eyewitness accounts. Second, motion news furthers the media's tendency to value style over substance. According to the previously cited Global Post, Apple Daily CEO Simon Lee plans to wean younger readers off newspapers by hooking them on the spectacle of motion news. And the public has created a market for spectacle in a mutually reinforcing relationship that encourages journalists to amp up the drama. But the Apple Daily takes edutainment a step further than pseudo-news programs like The Daily Show, which leads us to our final implication: increased acceptance of visual reconstruction. According to the Taipei Times of November 29, 2009, words and images are different. When you show people images, they begin to see it as fact. In a society where soldiers, pilots, and doctors are trained using CGI technology, we accept simulation as a legitimate representation of reality. This acceptance can be manipulated in dangerous ways. The New York Times of December 5, 2009 says that Italian prosecutors recently used a computer game-like animation in the conviction of an American college student on trial for the murder of her roommate. While lawyers are trained to cross-examine evidence, and scientists are trained to question theory, we are trained to accept news reports as fact. CGI is just one more tool for reporters to represent reality. As consumers, we must understand our proclivity to accept visual reconstruction so that we can be well-informed members of society. Computer animation allows us to glimpse what might have been, but it also undermines the legitimacy of journalism. Today, we have come to better understand Darley's method, we've applied it to motion news, and finally, we took a look at the implications for the modern media. We as a society rely on the media to provide us with an accurate representation of reality. However, motion news is more likely to provide us with an interesting story than an accurate one. As technology evolves, we must become increasingly critical consumers of information, because motion news is on its way to the United States, where it will only become more common, more daring, and more realistic.